From real-life Nazi hunters to a kid with 526 teeth, and even scientists building a robot tongue, I'm Mike with List 25, and here are 25 astoundingly true and unexpected random facts. During World War II, the British formed a special unit called the No. 10 Commando, made up of volunteers from places like Norway, France, and Poland who wanted to fight the Nazis. But the most interesting part of this unit was No. 3 Troop, fondly known as X Troop. This subgroup of about 75 men wasn't just from one country. The X actually stood for miscellaneous. Most of them were German-speaking Jewish refugees from Germany and Austria who had fled the Nazis and were now coming back to fight. And not just in uniform. These guys were trained for deep raids, to sneak behind enemy lines and carry out missions most commando teams wouldn't touch. Their identities were kept secret, even from the other Allied forces, because capture didn't just mean death. It meant death as traitors and potential revenge against any family members still stuck under Nazi control. They knew all that, and still signed up. In most places, jeans are just jeans. But in North Korea, blue denim still raises red flags. The country's founder, Kim Il-sung, once called them American spiritual pollution, and Levi's became a weird symbol of moral decay. Even the fit could get you into trouble. Too tight? Too Western. Too loose? Same. While enforcement varies today, especially outside Pyongyang, denim bans still pop up during national holidays and state inspections. Some people try to fly under the radar by dyeing their jeans darker or flipping them inside out, but the fact that regular blue jeans can still be seen as a threat, well, that hasn't changed much. On a totally different note, the treadmill. Today it's for fitness freaks, but the first versions actually appeared in ancient Rome, where they were part of giant cranes. Workers would walk inside its massive tread wheels to lift heavy loads, oftentimes double their body weight. Fast forward to the 1800s, and farmers started putting horses on treadmills to power equipment, which probably helped to inspire the idea of horsepower, although the term itself came earlier, courtesy of James Watt. Then came 1818, when the treadmill officially crossed over into punishment territory, courtesy of William Cubitt. He redesigned it so prisoners would walk it for hours, powering mills or pumps just to break their spirit. That kind of hard labor was eventually banned in 1889, but the treadmill didn't go away. It just moved into your house. Not to be outdone by ancient punishment machines, 16 Asian elephants spent 2020 and 2021 on a 300-mile joyride across China after breaking out of their nature reserve. They marched down highways, trampled farmland, and casually caused 412 incidents of damage, mostly to crops, racking up around 6.8 million yuan in losses. That's about $1.1 million along the way. At one point, they even brought the entire town of Ishan to a standstill while they roamed the streets for over 6 hours, and residents were told to stay inside. After more than a year on the move, the elephants eventually turned around on their own, but not before outmaneuvering 360 people, 76 police vehicles, and a fleet of drones. All for one very expensive, very slow-moving U-turn. Away from stampeding elephants and into your living room, we all know air pollution isn't doing our lungs any favors. But now it turns out, it can mess with your mind too. In a recent study, 26 people were exposed to fine particles from candle smoke for just 60 minutes, then asked to complete cognitive tests. Their ability to concentrate dropped noticeably, and more surprisingly, so did their emotional awareness. Participants had a harder time reading facial expressions, especially when it came to telling the difference between anger and happiness. According to researchers, apart from the concentration issue, this kind of mental fog can make social situations a lot trickier, from misjudging a coworker's mood to accidentally picking a fight you didn't mean to start. Alright, did you know that we've taught seals to sing the Star Wars theme? Okay, I didn't, but we did, you know what I mean. The 3 seal pups, Zola, Janice, and Gandalf, were taught to mimic sounds by scientists at a research facility near Scotland's east coast until they were about a year old. They started by recording the seals' natural vocalizations, then adjusted the pitch and tone to create short melodies. Over time, the seals learned to copy those patterns and managed to repeat simple sequences, but Zola became the breakout star. He barks out a surprisingly decent version of Twinkle Twinkle Little Star, and even parts of the Star Wars intro. Now, according to those who've heard them sing, it is totally unreal. And yeah, fair. Singing seals were not in our bingo card either. Speaking of unexpected talents, scientists have also built a machine that can taste. It's called the electric tongue, or e-tongue, and it's designed to mimic the human tongue's ability to pick up flavors and subtle chemical differences. The device uses a set of sensors, each coated in materials that react to things like salt, sugar, acids, and amino acids. When a liquid touches the sensors, they send out electrical signals that create a kind of flavor fingerprint. Software then reads the pattern and figures out exactly what's in the sample. Some of the versions are so precise that they can spot counterfeit whiskey. So yes, we have officially reached the point where machines can critique your taste in wine. Some machine-allier, that sounded better in my head. Still, even the best human palates, or egos, have been crushed before. Just ask King Henry VIII. We usually remember him for his 6 wives and his ever-expanding waistline, but in his younger years, Henry was actually a serious athlete. In 1520, he showed up at the Field of Cloth of Gold, a grand diplomatic event that was meant to strengthen ties between England and France, and decided to flex his skills by challenging the French king, Francis I, to a wrestling match. It didn't go well. Francis tossed him to the ground almost immediately with what one observer called a rapidly executed hip throw. There's no record of Henry's reaction, but 2 years later he declared war on France. Coincidence? Maybe. Or maybe not. Zooming out a bit, let's go back 41,000 years when auroras weren't just a polar thing. They lit up the skies almost everywhere. This happened during the La Champs excursion, a geomagnetic flip where the Earth's magnetic field weakened to just 10% of its normal strength. With our shield down, radiation streamed in the process pushing auroras far past the poles and into places like Europe and Asia. It must have been incredibly beautiful, but also a UV nightmare. Some researchers even think the rise in ochre used around this time may have been early humans figuring out their own kind of sunscreen. Neanderthals also disappeared during this same period. Whether that's coincidence or cosmic fallout, we don't know. But what we do know is that our ancestors didn't just survive the weakened magnetic field, they ultimately thrived. I've also got to tell you about a very different kind of survival story. In 2019, a 7-year-old boy in Chennai, India was taken to the hospital with a swollen jaw his parents feared might be cancer. It wasn't, but it wasn't normal either. An X-ray revealed a sac in his lower jaw, and when surgeons opened it, they found 526 tiny teeth inside. The boy had a rare condition called composite odontoma, a benign tumor made of dental tissue. His parents had tried to get help when the swelling first showed up at age 3, but the boy was so uncooperative that doctors couldn't examine him. So the whole thing quietly grew for 4 years. Luckily, he made a full recovery after surgery. The tumor was removed without damaging his adult teeth, and he ended up with a perfectly normal set of 21. Meanwhile, deep in the Austrian Alps, you'll find a cave that looks like it belongs on another planet. It's called the Eisriesenwelt, which translates to World of the Ice Giants, and it's the largest ice cave on the planet, stretching almost 30 miles through the mountains above Werfen village in Salzburg. The cave system was discovered in 1879 and consists of a network of chambers that circulate air freely, keeping the interior cold enough to preserve the massive ice formations year-round. Only a portion of the cave is open to the public, but it's more than enough to freeze your face off in July. Moving on, did you know that the ancient Sumerians believed in vampires? Thousands of years before European folklore gave us fangs and coffins, the Sumerians had stories about the Ekimu and the Utuku. The Ekimu were angry, unburied souls who wandered the earth, feeding on the living and sleeping underground. The Utuku were a little different. These were spirits of the dead who had been forgotten or left without proper offerings, and they didn't take that lightly. They came back from the afterlife, draining energy from anyone they encountered. And like the best horror monsters, they were almost impossible to destroy. One legend even tells of an Utuku who befriended Gilgamesh, which is either character development or very strange casting. Then there's the fact that a neat, scalable, and kind of brilliant bit of math is behind almost every piece of paper outside the US. The A-series paper system, like A4, follows a ratio of 2 to 1, which basically means you can fold it in half and the proportions stay the same. The Invisible Paper Standard, or ISO 2016, started in Germany in the 20s and went internationally by the 70s. A0 is exactly 1 square meter, and each size down just halves the area while keeping the shape. It's why documents in most of the world scale perfectly between sizes. Meanwhile, the US, Canada, and parts of Mexico still use the old 8.5 by 11 letter format, a size with no mathematical logic whatsoever. Which is why printing a European resume in America is a crime scene of bad margins and broken formatting. Centuries earlier, the Inca Empire ran 25,000 miles of roads without a single Excel doc, and its emperor still has living descendants today. Atahualpa's execution by the Spanish in 1533 brought an end to the largest empire in the Americas, but its bloodline didn't disappear. In 2009, Dutch historian Ronald Elward moved to Peru and tracked 25 family names that were directly linked to Atahualpa, and found most of them in Peru's lower social classes. One woman, Roberta Huaman Remanchi Tupahuacayo, works as a nanny by day. Her mother's side carries royal Inca blood, and her father collects ancestral skulls, part of an old tradition. DNA testing later confirmed that dozens of these individuals are genetically tied to populations near Lake Titicaca, which, according to Inca mythology, is exactly where the first Incas emerged from the water, sent by the sun god to found a great empire. Today, royal bloodlines might be fading, but internet trends are alive and well, and sometimes end with a medical bill. In March 2025, a couple in China walked into an emergency room with a very specific problem. The woman's clenched fist was stuck inside the man's mouth. They'd been attempting a viral hand-eating challenge, where the goal is for the man to open his mouth wide enough for a woman to insert her whole fist. Technically, they succeeded, until the man's jaw spasmed and clamped down, trapping her hand inside. Doctors had to act fast. They played calming music, used a mouth opener to keep his jaw from locking further, and injected a muscle relaxant. After 20 crazy minutes, the couple was finally separated, and hopefully unfollowed. Then again, cinema had its own issues with letting go. Even though movies with sound existed by the late 20s, it took nearly 5 decades for the first honest-to-goodness fart to make it onto the big screen. Yasujiro Ozo's Good Morning from 1959 flirted with the idea. It is full of fart jokes. But it wasn't until Blazing Saddles in 1974 that audiences got the real thing. A group of cowboys sitting around a campfire eating beans and farting like their lives depended on it. According to director Mel Brooks, he just wanted it to feel realistic. Quote, "You can't eat so many beans without some noise happening there." And just in case that wasn't enough, he also named a character Governor Le Pétement, after a 19th century French performer whose name literally means fart maniac. We should also talk about one of the creepiest timepieces ever built. Designed by John Taylor and gifted to Corpus Christi College in 2008, the Corpus clock is a gold-plated public installation that, at first glance, looks beautiful. Its rippled face is meant to represent the Big Bang, the supposed beginning of time itself. But look closer, and the mood shifts. There are no hands or numbers, just concentric rings of LED lights marking the seconds, minutes, and hours. The real scene stealer, though, is the chronophage, a giant metal grasshopper that marches along the top and eats each passing second with a snap of its jaws. And every hour it rattles a chain and strikes a hidden coffin, just to remind you that, yes, time's still passing, and you're still dying. Minecraft, on the other hand, captures attention in a way that seems to pause time altogether, and psychologists think they know why. It turns out that sandbox games like Minecraft tap into the same instincts that drive kids to play in real-life sandboxes. Human children, like most young mammals, use play to practice survival skills. And because humans are wired to build tools, shelters, and social structures, games that let them do that feel deeply satisfying. Minecraft lets kids gather materials, build homes, craft weapons, and even raise animals. It checks all the primal boxes, with no real-world consequences. Combine that with the open-ended creativity, and it's basically the perfect storm of digital engagement. Of course, games aren't the only place where people have been known to take risks. In 1986, Soviet pilot Alexander Kryuyev was flying Aeroflot Flight 6502 when he got into an argument with his co-pilot. Kryuyev insisted that he could land the plane without any visual aid, meaning with the cockpit curtains closed. The two continued to argue about Kryuyev's capabilities until it turned into a bet. You can probably see where this is going, right? Because he couldn't. To prove his point, Kryuyev attempted his blind landing with 90 passengers on board. He came in too fast, misjudged the approach, and the plane flipped. Over 60 people were killed. Kryuyev survived and was sentenced to 15 years in prison. On the flip side, one of NASA's gambles might have quietly stumbled upon the biggest discovery in human history. While exploring an ancient riverbed called Neretva Vallis, the Perseverance rover photographed strange little formations we nicknamed leopard spots and poppy seeds. They're tiny, less than a millimeter wide, but they're found in one of the places scientists were most hopeful about when it came to finding Martian life. Multiple researchers now believe that these formations could be biological. Similar features on Earth are created by microbes, and the shapes don't appear to come from heat or other non-living processes. So maybe the question isn't if there's life on Mars, but how long until someone confirms it. Which brings us to a different kind of futuristic tech. The ARTS program, short for Anonymous Real-Time Speech, isn't about painting or poetry. It's a US intelligence initiative designed to change the way people speak while they're speaking. The idea is to modify a person's voice in real time, making it impossible to trace or manipulate what they've said. Why? Because recordings can be dangerous. With the right tools, old audio clips can be edited, deepfaked, or even taken wildly out of context. ARTS is meant to stop that by scrambling your vocal signature before anyone can misuse it. The program started with English, but it's expanding to Spanish and is designed to fool both humans and AI. Sticking with ways to fool the senses, researchers are now encouraging you to break one of the oldest etiquette rules. A team at Oxford University says we should all be eating with our mouths open. Not to be rude, but to boost flavor. Chewing with your mouth wide open, that was pretty, actually helps release more volatile organic compounds, which travel up to your nose and enhance the taste of your food. Those in the know also say that noisy foods like chips, crackers, and apples are even more enjoyable when you can hear the crunch. So if someone catches you crunching popcorn with your mouth open, just say you're doing it for science. Still, if your idea of a good time involves more screaming than snacking, you might be hardwired for more risk than the rest of us. Psychologists have found that thrill seekers respond to stress with a chemical reward. Dopamine kicks in, cortisol drops, and their brain labels the chaos as fun. But for the cautious crowd, it's the opposite. Cortisol spikes, dopamine barely shows up, and the experience feels more like a threat than a thrill. It all comes down to your hormones, or brain chemistry if you will, which means that the whole "you'll love it once you try it" argument will simply never work for everyone. It's just your biology. At number 2 on our list today, I'm bringing you the cure everybody's had an opinion on since we first invented the placement of garlic on dough. According to a study done by the best and brightest at the Ohio State University, the secret weapon against garlic breath isn't gum, parsley, or holding your breath forever, it's yogurt. Researchers have discovered that the fats and proteins in yogurt trap the sulfur compounds in garlic before they can stink up your breath. High-fat yogurts work best, removing up to 99% of the worst-smelling particles. Bonus tip, you can reduce the odor of garlic by frying it too. Use it, don't use it. That's up to you. Finally, I'm wrapping things up with a drink that's probably not in your local craft beer aisle. If you ever visit Iceland, you should know that it's the home of volcanoes, glaciers, and Kvalar 2, a beer that's brewed with a smoked whale testicle inside. Yep, that's the main attraction. Made by the Stedi microbrewery, this limited edition brew uses a testicle from an endangered fin whale, which is then smoked using sheep dung, because apparently one shock factor wasn't enough, and dropped straight into the brewing tank. Fans describe the flavor as bold, earthy, and a full-bodied dare disguised as a beverage. The beer was briefly banned in 2014 by Iceland's public health authorities, but quickly made a comeback in 2015, proving that nothing is off-limits if someone, somewhere, insists it pairs well with fermented hops. And that's a wrap. From voice-scrambling spy tech to smoked whale testicle beer, I'd say we've officially covered the full human experience. Got a favorite? Or a fact that you wish you could unhear? Let me know in the comments below. I read everything. And if you'd like to spend some more time with me, well, why don't you check out our related video, 25 Facts That Make Us Doubt How Well We Know the World. It's got everything from 31,000-year-old amputations to the possibility that Homer, the poet guy, wasn't even real. As always, thank you guys so much for watching. Hit that subscribe button, ring that bell, and I'll catch you again next time. See ya.